From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and I am sick as a dog. And I'm doing this podcast from my truck with AirPods on and a bunch of Dayquil in me. So I am going to apologize in advance if the sound quality is not great. I hope the content's great, but again, I'm a little foggy today. And to be honest with you, I really contemplated waiting until I had the perfect situation, sitting at my desk, warm cup of coffee, the sun just creeping up over the horizon, but sometimes it's better to just get it done than prepare to prepare. We started an accountability group on WhatsApp for fitness and nutrition, and it's become really clear that so many people are getting ready to get ready. And we've talked about that before in the servant leadership course. You can't keep getting ready to get ready. At a certain point, you just have to you have to act. Action brings motivation, not the other way around. So I'm trying to take my own medicine, both literally and figuratively. So I'm going to get this recording done, even though the conditions may not be optimal. So I appreciate your grace, and I appreciate your patience in dealing with a suboptimal host. Anyways, I wanted to pick up where we left off last week, talking about one-on-ones. If you guys have not listened to last week's recording, I would encourage you to do that. We unpacked everything that's involved with informal one-on-ones, different tools that I've used, different frameworks. If you're an extroverted leader, how to handle it. If you're an introverted leader, how to handle it. If it's a brand new employee, how to handle it. If it's a more seasoned employee, how to handle it. And all the stuff in between. And I think that's a really good backdrop for this week's ramblings, which are regarding formal reviews. And the reason that this is even top of mind, like I mentioned last week, is in our organization, we use June as an opportunity to do what we call formal reviews instead of informal reviews. And also in June, we do a compensation review. And I think there's a lot of advantages to how we do it. And I want to try to unpack that for some of you guys. And if you are struggling with your own system, then maybe you can take a few nuggets and pearls from what we're doing and implement it to your system. Just to piggyback on what I said last week, a formal review doesn't really work unless you've had a really great relationship with the person informally, right? Like, I'm not a huge fan of the bureaucratic, I'm only going to meet with my person once every 12 months and then just drop a bomb on them in terms of feedback, right? I'm not going to unpack everything that I said last week, but that's truly unfair to someone. So when we go into the formal reviews, it's with the assumption that we have at least had a history or a cadence of informal one-on-ones. And the team member has a fairly good idea on if they're winning or not. The team member has had a fairly good plan in place if there's something that they're struggling with in order to improve. So let's unpack the formal one-on-one and the compensation review. First thing that we do is we try to put together a summary for the employee on what their compensation is. And I'd be more than happy to share an example of what that looks like with you. You can reach out to me. My contact information is on our website, dentallighthouse.com. But we're basically trying to communicate to the employee ahead of time exactly what their specific compensation and benefits are. So we talk about hourly. If they're hourly, we talk about their salary. If they're salary, we talk about bonuses, incentive pay, 401k, vacation, everything that the organization pours into the employee. Because all too often, unfortunately, but sometimes this is how it is, the employee is only hung up on what I make per hour, or the cash that hits my bank account every 2 weeks. And don't get me wrong, that's a super important thing to consider. But if the benefits are through the roof, if there's a decent amount of PTO, if there's a great 401k plan, if there's health insurance, all of these other things add up, right? All of these other things cost money. And sometimes, not all employees, but a lot of employees forget that there's a cost associated with all of these benefits. So it behooves us to make sure that we're crystal clear with the employee and explain to them exactly how much revenue, how much money we're pouring into this employee. So we want to give that to the employee a few days ahead of time. And one of the reasons that we want to give that to the employee is because, again, part of this formal review is a compensation review. And if we're going to have a conversation about compensation, then they need to know currently where we're at. Again, this is a couple of days ahead of time. The next thing I like to do about a week ahead of time is get feedback from people that are consistently working with this team member. Now, if you're at a small office of, say, 6 to 8 people, and you're routinely working intimately with this person, let's say you're the office manager that has to do this review, or that gets to do this review, and it's going to be with your treatment coordinator who sits next to you 8 hours a day. Yes, it's helpful to get some feedback from maybe the doctor in the office, or a clinical assistant, or someone else. But the reality is you're with this person 8 hours a day, so you have all of the feedback that you typically need. If you have a larger organization, if you have a large practice, if you have situations where, for example, you're a regional manager and you need to do a one-on-one with an office manager at one of your offices, and you're only in that office 1 day a week, then you should be reaching out to people that work intimately with that office manager so you can get really good feedback. So who would you reach out to? Well, you can reach out to the doctor in that office. You could reach out to maybe one of the TCs at that front desk area. You could reach out to one of the hygienists or the assistants. You just need to proactively get some feedback. And the feedback that I like to get from team members is basically, I'm asking 2 questions. I say, first, help me understand 1 or 2 or 3 things that this particular person is doing that's amazing, brings value to the team, and really enhances the patient experience. I love that question, and it leads to others giving feedback on that person that really can lift them up, that can really shine a spotlight on things that they're doing super well. And then the second question I like to ask is, help me identify 1 to 2 behaviors that are actually deterring from the value that this person is bringing to the team, that are deterring from the patient experience. And that's obviously a tougher question to answer. But again, in the principles of agape love and servant leadership, if we're truly trying to grow someone, if we truly are going to love on them, then one of the principles is we need to be honest with them. And we need to let them know where they're being wildly successful, and more importantly, where they're missing the mark. We need to be able to communicate that to the person from a position of empathy, from a position of curiosity. All stuff that you've heard me talk about at nausea in the past. So you can't do this like an hour before the formal review. You need to plan accordingly, and you need to reach out to a handful of people and get this feedback, ideally 2-3 days, maybe a week ahead of time. The other thing that we like to tell the employee that we're going to do the formal one-on-one review with is start to do your own research. And if you're expecting a compensation review, bring quote unquote proof, bring data to the one-on-one that suggests that you are in line for a compensation increase, that suggests that you are due for a raise. And I'm not going to tell you how to run your business from a compensation perspective, but I will share with you a couple things that have worked for us. I do not believe in just giving people raises that are tenure based. Well, you've been here another year, here's another 5%. I don't personally believe that. Our strategy is we want to pay every employee on the high end of market value based on the value that they bring based on the skill set that they have. So let's use hygienists for an example. So hygienists, if you have great experience, if you are very desired by the patient base, if you're a great educator when it comes to what's going on with the patient, if you can use laser, if you can give anesthesia, if you're well versed in taking bacterial samples and showing the patient that they have some type of anaerobic gram-negative bacteria that's causing peritonitis. All of these things, right? These are not characteristics that traditionally come from a new grad. If you have all of these things, then you're a much more experienced, you bring much more value to the practice. In our organization, that particular hygienist needs to be paid more than a brand new grad, right? That particular hygienist needs to be paid on the higher end of fair market value. Now, as you guys know, I hate ambiguity, but this is a little bit ambiguous. What is the higher end? So what we try to do to identify that is look at a lot of different resources like Indeed, Glassdoor, PayScale. We're constantly interviewing people. What are they asking for based on their experience? There's so many different ways to start to figure out that range of what is high end. Now again, that's our strategy. Your strategy might be, we want to pay the middle of fair market value. I know a lot of dentists that their strategy is, I want to pay on the low end of fair market value. No judgment. It just depends on, depends on what your practice philosophy is. There's a lot of dentists out there that run very successful PPO or Medicaid-based practices, and their strategy is to pay hygienists and assistants on the low end of fair market value and incentivize them through production bonuses and stuff like that. They expect a level of turnover, and they're fine with it based on their practice model. So no judgment. You just have to have clarity in your own mind. Well, what's my strategy here? Am I truly trying to retain people? Am I truly trying to pay people what they're worth? Or am I going to kind of nickel and dime these situations? Or is my strategy to pay on the low end? Like, again, no judgment, but there's a big problem if you don't have clarity with what your strategy is. Excuse me. And there's other ways to kind of figure this out. We've talked about tier sheets with assistants and hygienists. If you're able to do these skills, A, B, and C, then you're worth X amount of dollars per hour. If you're able to do XYZ skills, you're worth X amount of dollars per hour. And again, I think those are good reference points, but at the end of the day, it's a more nuanced conversation, and you need to decide how valuable this person is, and if they are truly valuable based on everything that we just unpacked in terms of the example of the hygienist, and your strategy is to pay well, then you need to pay the person, right? So that's the first thing. The other part of the formal review is a review of the core values, right? And this is where we try to get as objective and black and white as possible. We use Gino Wickman's philosophy from the book EOS about above the bar, below the bar. And I have some documents that I can share with you guys. This can be a little bit confusing to hear audibly. To hear my voice, this might be a little bit confusing. But at the end of the day, here's what you do. You lay out your 5 core values, your 6 core values, your 10 core values. They should already be well defined. We talked about this last week, where there's a lot of basic things that need to be worked out before you can go into this framework. One of those being the core values need to be clearly listed and clearly defined, right? So once you have that, if you need help with that, reach out to me, I can help you with that. Once you have that, then you need to grade this person on each core value. And you don't give them a numerical grade like 89%, 44%. The way Gino Wickman does it, and I love it, is you either give them a plus for that core value because they exhibit this behavior a majority of the time. You give them a minus because they do not exhibit this behavior a majority of the time. Or you give them a plus minus because they're about 50-50. About half the time they exhibit this behavior, but half the week they come in and they're just a different cat, right? You then have to decide what your standard is, where the bar is, so to speak. So in our organization, we do not tolerate any negatives, right? You cannot be given a negative on our standard and not go on weeklies. Now, again, this is where the informal one-on-one comes in, and it's so important. If you're only doing a formal review every 6 months or every 12 months, and someone has consistently been breaking a core value, like let's say humility, huge ego, they think they walk on water, they're just classic non-humble person. If the first time they're hearing about this is at a formal review, that's unfair to them. That's why the value of the informal one-on-one is so high. So please don't be dropping all of these truth bombs thinking that you're all of a sudden keeping people accountable at a formal review for the first time. If you haven't done any of these reviews, then you should not be starting with a formal review. You should be starting with informal reviews, like I unpacked last week. But assuming that you've developed a good relationship with this person, assuming that you've met with this person informally, regular cadence of monthly one-on-ones, then you should not be giving a minus to anyone. If you've been given a minus, if you're giving a minus, it's that you haven't done your job about speaking truth into their life and helping coach them up. So again, above the bar for us is a majority of these core values are graded plus, and then there's a couple that could be plus minus, but none of them are negative. Excuse me. So once we go over the core value review, once we have the compensation review, then we like to unpack a little bit of what the person's goals are, both personally and professionally. Personally, if they want to talk about that, professionally, definitively, of what they're hoping to accomplish over the next 6 months. And we're recording all of these. As you know, we record everything, and then we use AI to create notes. So we have a documented list of things that they are committing to. Now, again, let's use an assistant as an example. The assistant may commit to becoming more competent with implant dentistry, taking all on X bridges off and on, cleaning them, trying in multi-unit abutments. Maybe it's something as simple as continuing to, what the phrase we like to use at work is autograph your work. So continuing to autograph their work when it comes to clinical photographs, x-rays, making sure that they meet our standard, all of these things. So start to document things that you're asking this person to work on over the next 3, 4, 5 months. And then when you pick up the conversation again during the informal one-on-one, that's one of the first action items that you would talk about. You would sit down with Mary, the assistant, and say, hey, Mary, when we met last month regarding our at the formal one-on-one, a couple of the things that you committed to were increasing your own standard when it came to clinical photography and when it came to x-rays. I presented you a few resources. I connected you with 2 of our other assistants that are phenomenal at this skill. Help me understand where we're at with this. So just open-ended questions, asking based on a position of curiosity and empathy, and just trying to get an update as to where they are. Sorry, a little foggy today. And then I just want to go back real quick and touch on the compensation part of it. So I'm all over the place today. It's because I'm driving. Here I just took the wrong exit. It is what it is. So from the compensation perspective, again, our strategy is we want to pay on the high end, but we will not overpay, right? One of our vision statements is a fiscally responsible organization, and we cannot be fiscally responsible if we're overpaying people. Again, you do you. Our strategy is that we're going to pay on the high end, but we're not going to overpay. So if someone is underpaid, I'm doing a one-on-one today, later today. I'm currently the hygiene lead in the flagship office because I haven't found the perfect person to take that seat, so it's me. I did the same thing with assistants years ago until I found the perfect person. Her name's Leah. She walks on water. She's amazing. She's a great leader. And she's not a dental assistant. She's a sterilization tech. At least that's what her training was. I digress. So one of the one-on-ones I'm doing today with Sorry, just trying to be cognizant of the road here. One of the one-on-ones I'm doing today with one of my hygienists, it's going to be a fun conversation, right? Because in my opinion, she's underpaid. Now, why is she underpaid, or how am I making that determination? Well, she's been a hygienist for me for, I hope she's not listening to this because I'm probably going to get this wrong, 3 or 4 or 5 years, let's say. Before that, she was a dental assistant. She was a phenomenal dental assistant. She went to hygiene school. Now she's a phenomenal hygienist. And we were paying her at the high end of fair market value all along. But then we saw this explosion with hygiene salaries. Again, that's out of my control. I can't control that. I just have to try to keep up. So we saw this explosion. And now we have some new grads that are actually making more than she is. That's not fair to her. She has, she's everything that I want in a hygienist. She's a phenomenal core value fit. She does really great things in terms of patient education, all of those other extras that we talked about. Are there a few things that she needs to work on? 100%. How do I know that she needs to work on those things? Well, I got feedback from people that work closely to her that it would be great if she ... right? So those are things that I will bring up with her, and those are things that I will help keep her accountable on to working on. But I need to give her a raise so she falls in line to the high end of fair market value for the value that she brings to the office and the skill set that she has. Now, we want to do this to be fair to the employee, but we also have to be fiscally responsible to the organization. So in my world, I like to use the number 10%. I like to say, okay, and I don't know exactly what her pay is, but let's say it's $45 an hour, and let's say that she really needs to get to $50 an hour, right? So I don't like to give yearly raises more than 10% for these types of unicorns, because that's not being fiscally responsible. So 10%. So if I really wanted to get her to 50, 10%, let's say she makes 44. 10% of 44 is $4.40. I would give this person the maximum, right? So $4.40 on to 44. That takes her to $48.40. And I would say to her, this is the maximum I can give you and still be fiscally responsible. This is what I want to give you, and we will revisit this next year. Now, if she has a problem with that, then I don't know what to do, because I'm not going to put everyone else in jeopardy and overpay, or at least make a jump that's going to put the rest of the office in harm's way financially. Now, if I also have a 15 or 20 year tenured person who's just meh, who's like what we'll call a B player, B minus player, and she wants to also be paid on the high end of fair market value, then I will try to get that person to that point, but I'm not going to back up the bank truck and do that for someone that is consistently not doing what I have asked of them from a core value perspective, from a roles and responsibility perspective. And they know this because I've had this conversation with them during the informal one-on-ones. This is the key. Like, they cannot be blindsided. They have to know ahead of time. And they know through these monthly one-on-ones, you know, Mary, I've been asking you to do this, this, and this on a regular basis. It gets better for a week and then it falls off. Like, I've been very clear with what I've been asking you to do, yet you're not doing it. Why would I then agree to pay you at this level when you're consistently not doing what I need you to do? Now, again, we've talked ad nauseam about A, B, and C players. I'm not saying tolerate mediocrity. I'm not saying harbor C players on your team, but you need B players too. Right? So if she's just meeting the standard, she's just kind of humming along, cool. But those types of people don't get big raises, right? My A players, my people that are constantly pushing the envelope, my people that are constantly trying to grow, those are the people that I'm trying to reward. I also want to give raises to B players, but I'm not going to give that high of a percentage. The percentage could be in the 0 to 5% range, let's say. So again, you have to reward people that deserve to be rewarded, but you also have to be fiscally responsible. You also have to make sure that your P&L is in line, your staff costs are in line, and all the stuff that goes with that. So again, sorry about kind of jumping all over the place. I'm on a bunch of medicine. I'm lost. I'm covering for one of my doctors, and I'm going to be late. I'm going to get yelled at. Good thing I have breakfast pizza. Hopefully that smooths things out. So unpacked a lot today, guys. Please reach out if you have any questions or concerns. If you just want to talk through a framework, I'll be happy to have you on the podcast, and you can unpack your specific situation. I can maybe give advice if I had a little bit more context on your situation, and then we'll go from there. Love you guys. Talk soon.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.